Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Solomon, and I'd like to welcome back those of you who have joined us from previous sessions and extend a warm welcome to anyone who is attending for the first time. Thank you for joining us for webinar 3 of our 4-part series. I am so glad that you're here with us today, and I am looking forward to another meaningful conversation together. But first, a little bit of information about today's conversation. Almost 500 of us have registered for today's webinar. Please feel free to tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do in the chat. Thank you to our amazing interpreter, Natalia Correa, joining us from Colombia. She will be simultaneously translating our webinar into Spanish. Thank you, Natalia. To access the translation, click on the interpretation icon in your Zoom controls. Then select Spanish. To mute the English in the background, select Mute Original Audio. To turn on live captioning, click on the Show Captions icon in your Zoom controls and select your speaking language. You can adjust the size of the subtitles. We welcome your questions and comments throughout today's conversation. Please use the chat feature if you have a comment to share or need help with a technical issue. And please put your questions for our guests in the Q&A box. Before we begin, I want to thank our partners at the Brazelton Touchpoint Center and my colleagues at Equality Florida for their collaboration and support in making this series possible. A special thank you to Catherine Knowles O'Brien, Michael Cardi, Nelson Atavera, and Ashley Gaddis for all their work behind the scenes. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, my name is Jennifer Solomon, and I serve as the Senior Manager of Parents and Family Support at Equality Florida, where I lead our Parenting with Pride program. Parenting with Pride is a statewide initiative that provides education, resources, and support to parents, caregivers, and allies of LGBTQ+ youth. Through our webinars, our workshops, support groups, one-on-one conversations, and community partnerships, we work to ensure that thousands of families have the tools they need to affirm, support, and advocate for their children. While our work is rooted in Florida, I have the privilege of connecting with folks from across the country who are all committed to creating safer and more affirming spaces for LGBTQ+ young people. If you are looking for resources or support after today's session, please know that I am always happy to help point you in the right direction. My connection to this work is also personal. I am a pediatric nurse, president of PFLAG Miami, and most of all, a proud parent of 4 children, 3 of whom are part of the LGBTQ+ community. Like many of you, I understand both the joys and challenges that come with supporting a child in today's world. Finding community has been so important to me as a parent and an ally, and so I thank you personally for being here and creating a space for us to all come together to learn and to be supported. Over the past 2 sessions, we've explored the importance of connection, communication, and well-being. We've talked about how meaningful conversations help build trust with our children and create a foundation of support. We also have spent time focusing on ourselves as parents and caregivers, recognizing that our own well-being matters and that caring for ourselves is as important part of caring for our children and our families. Tonight, we're building on those conversations by exploring another powerful tool, our stories. Today, we are presenting episode 3, Pride in Our Stories, using lived experience to advocate, connect, and lead. Everyone has a story. Some of us never imagined we would become advocates. Some of us found ourselves speaking up at school board meetings, talking with family members, educating friends, or sharing our experiences with others who needed support. Often, our stories become one of the most powerful ways we create understanding and inspire change. At the same time, sharing our experiences can feel vulnerable. Not every story needs to be told in every space. And part of advocacy is understanding when, where, and how to share in ways that feel safe and meaningful for ourselves and our families. In today's session, we'll explore the power of storytelling as a tool for advocacy, connection, and leadership. We'll discuss how parents can use their lived experiences to create change while setting boundaries to protect their well-being and their families. Together, we'll reflect on how our voices can make an impact in our schools, our communities, and beyond. If you're a provider, educator, or advocate for LGBTQ+ youth, We encourage you to think about how the ideas shared here today can help strengthen your work with the youth and the families who trust you as a partner in their journey. I'm especially excited to be joined by Nia Clark and Lindsay Clark from the Human Rights Campaign for this conversation. Their experience supporting families and advocates across the country will help us think about how our stories can help strengthen our communities and broader movement for equality. Thank you for being here with us today, whether you are someone who shares your story often or someone who is still finding your voice. I hope you leave this session feeling empowered to decide how your experiences can serve both your family and your community. And now I'll turn it over to you, Nia.
Good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Nia Desiree Clark. My pronouns are the she series, and I am really looking forward to this conversation with you today. Full disclosure, I am a woman of transgender experience. I want to wish everybody a happy Pride. Please type in the chat. Happy Pride to everyone. Let's be in this mood. Pride started out as a riot. Pride started out as a protest. So let's wish each other happy Pride. We are still here. We are still queer, and we are still affirming everyone. Thank you so much. All right. So, as I said before, I'm a woman of transgender experience. I am here with my, who I call my fraternal twin, but not, Lindsay Clark, who is also going to be presenting with me today. And let me just get my screen share. There we go. And so today we are going to be presenting on storytelling. So, why are stories so important right now? I know we need to get our stories out. The midterms are here. It's really time to do that. To tell you a little bit about myself, I'm going to, I am originally born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. Go Sox. I was just talking to a couple of mass holes today. So that was really funny. I am a lover of the Golden Girls, and I'm also a former foster youth. I spent 14 years in the foster care system where I was placed in more than 15 different homes in 2 different states. And when I aged out of the system hired me. And as a result, I became a clinically trained social worker. So I beat the odds, beat the numbers every single day. And so I know firsthand why storytelling matters. My favorite Golden Girl, I know it's kind of boring, but Dorothy, it's probably either Dorothy or Rose. I'm a hybrid of both. But yes, love me some Golden Girls. I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay to do a quick introduction and then we'll get started.
Hi, folks. Thanks, Nia. Lindsay Clark, they, them pronouns. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. I'm a non-binary trans person. I'm a proud Midwesterner. I'm a fierce older sibling. I'm an introvert in an extrovert position and profession. I am a proud pet parent to a senior pit bull who has fewer and fewer teeth every day. These are just some of the ways that I identify. And I'm so excited to be here with you all and to have this conversation and get to talk a little bit about why story sharing and storytelling is so important and how it can connect us in our humanity. And so I'm going to pass it back to Nia for our agenda for today.
Okay, so as we get started, you'll notice this presentation is exclusively in Mentimeter. So I'm putting up the QR code for folks to join us now. We're also dropping the Mentimeter link into the chat. I'm dropping it now. And we would love for everybody to jump on to the Menti. This is an opportunity for you to type and chat in real time. We want to make this as interactive as possible because we can't see everyone. But as we continue this journey, jump on in. Okay, so today's agenda, very quickly, we're going to be grounding in our why, really talking about why stories are so important in this moment. And I encourage you all, I believe my responsibility as a direct service provider, as a child welfare professional, is to be a conduit of information. And Lindsay's background is really in organizing and working around campaigns and elections. So we both strongly believe that people are part of this movement, and making sure that you are adequately resourced is so important. So having that conversation. We also recognize that you are the experts here. You are the experts of your own lives, and the gifts that we offer today are just tools to improve your expertise. Okay, so Lindsay we're going to go over the IWU framework for advocacy stories. It's really a tool for maximizing advocacy impact of your stories. So it's not just telling stories, it's tethering it to action and meaningful and wise action that you want people to take. Okay, it's also drafting. So we're going to give you some of our tools. To date, we have now trained almost 1,500 participants across 20 US cities. And so we have crafted a tool to help you with that storytelling process. Okay, and then give you some tips for advocacy stories. And then, of course, we want to make this interactive. You all are going to actually do your own qualitative data. You're going to actually give yourselves some ideas around how to move forward in advocacy through storytelling. Okay, so we are actually going to start off with a video. I'm going to make sure that I am sharing my sound and optimizing. Yes, so put it on stereo. Okay, so I'm going to bop out of here this for just a second, and we're going to watch a video. So this video is actually from our very first training in Columbus, Ohio at the Stonewall Columbus. And we actually trained a group of folks. And this is one of the folks who left the training. His name is Chris Dupin, and he followed our model to a T. So let's watch and see how Chris does storytelling, and then we'll debrief.
My name is Chris Dupin. I use the pronouns he, him. I'm a trans dad. And recently, my child was going on a school field trip to camp, and I was so excited, and she asked me to go with her. And I thought about it, and I thought about standing in this moment, whether that was going to be okay. But I decided to let hope win out, and I said yes, that I would go. 4 or 5 days before the field trip, the school principal called me and started in with the thing that nobody wants to hear, which is per Ohio revised code. And I just remember like my heart just sinking, and I knew what was coming after that. And she shared that I wasn't going to be able to go stay overnight. Having that conversation with Hayden, with a 10-year-old who just wanted her dad to come to camp, was the hardest part. And she said to me, Dad, I want to go on the field trip. My friends are there. It's important to me. And I want you to be there too. But I understand if you can't go. But Daddy, can you be brave? And that was what she asked of me to do. And I called the principal, and I named the harm that had happened, and I named that it was discrimination, and I asked her who she was going to show up for if she wasn't going to show up for my family and my child. And the most amazing thing happened was that she listened. And that's why I think that we have to be able to tell our stories, and we deserve to go on field trips, and we deserve to eat bad cafeteria food, and we deserve to sleep on mildewy mattresses at camp just like everybody else. And here's the part that I think that I would ask of you, and the ask is, be someone who shows up, be a person who listens, and be a person like this principal who said no more. That says, I'm going to show up, and I'm also going to be in this fight with you because we are so tired of doing this alone.
Okay, so let's go back into training. And I want to just ask, type into the chat, what were some things that came up for you in listening to this story from Chris? What were some takeaways from it? What did it make you feel? Type into the chat. Also, you can use the Mentimeter chat feature if you want some live delivery. So I see from someone, they said, mind blown. What blew your mind? What made this, mind blowing? Feel free to type into the Menti, or you can type directly into the Zoom chat. I definitely think that, for emphasis, this was really, really powerful. I see from someone so much emotion in just a short story. That was 1 minute and 20 seconds that you all just watched. It didn't take a long time, right? I see from one that says, I felt sad because he was being discriminated against. Yes. Kathy says, bravery, clearly identifying the discrimination. Yes, absolutely. He stood up for his child. Queer and trans kids having the opportunity to be kids. It's so powerful, right? So we're going to build on this momentum, but pay attention to those details because you are going to be learning how to craft a similar story. Okay. But it's great to see immediate engagement. I'm seeing your answers live. Heartbreaking. Glad they stood up for their child. It was powerful. All of that. You can continue to kind of type in things that come up for you. We want to make this as dynamic as possible. From Megan, as someone born and raised in a very liberal area of the country, hearing stories like this always open my eyes and break my heart. That's exactly what the point is. And we're going to actually break down the different pieces of Chris's story so that you can replicate it in your own voice with your own expertise. Okay? All right, I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay to ground us in our why.
Thanks, Nia. So before we get started, we just wanted to take a second to tell you all a little bit more about why we're really leaning into storytelling as a tool and why we're really asking you all to do the same. I don't have to tell you that we're living in extraordinary times right now. For the most part, things are better today than they were 50 years ago for queer folks, for gay folks, for trans folks. But we're seeing a huge backlash right now across the country, and I'm confident you all are feeling it the same way that we are. Our opponents are doubling down on telling lies about us, demeaning us, doing everything that they can to chisel away at the progress that we've made. And so it's really time for us to go back to the basics of what we know makes a difference and what has made a difference for us in the past in these moments of division and of narratives that aren't ours that are being shared about us. And storytelling is that tool. Storytelling is powerful. It's magical. It connects us in ways that no other tool can. It gets to the point faster than almost anything else can. Somebody mentioned that in a minute and a half, Chris made you feel so much. And that's what we see over and over again with storytelling. It is really one of the most powerful tools in your tool belts. And I'm confident I'm not the first person who's told you that you need to lean into storytelling as a tool. And none of us is reaching for our stories nearly as much as we could, reaching as confidently as we possibly could, using all of the strategy that we could to make our stories as powerful and as resonant as possible. And so this training came from our wanting to give folks the best opportunity to be able to reach for those stories more often, more confidently, and deliver those stories in a way that will really make maximum impact. And so being out in the world and telling the truth about our lives, whether that's who we are, what we believe in, what makes us tick, these truths will make the difference for us. And it's a tool you already have. You already have your truth, your experience, your vision, and you know the language of stories. We all do. It's something that as humans we value and share. And so if you take nothing else away from this whole training today, I hope you'll take that your stories are powerful and you should be reaching for them early and often in these conversations. And hopefully some of what we share today will help you to do that in a way that makes you feel even more powerful, even more ready to take on this moment. Next slide, please, Nia. So we at HRC have developed a tool, a framework to try to help you have the most impact that you can in your stories and also to make sure that you're checking off the boxes needed to really get through to your audience. And we call this framework the I, we, you framework. And the story that you just heard Chris share was in this framework. And so this is how it works. You start by telling a story from your personal past. This was Chris relaying the story of this interaction that he had with a school administrator and his conversations with his daughter. This is really the part of storytelling that most of us are most familiar with. It's looking back into the past and presenting a snapshot of something that you saw or witnessed or heard that helped to set who you are as a person and what you believe. And then we add two more things to that story to really give it additional power and resonance. The next is a we story, and this is the part where Chris was talking about the future we deserve. His example is kind of funny, right? He's talking about that we deserve cafeteria food and we deserve mildewy mattresses and to sleep in an uncomfortable place like everyone else. But it's an important opportunity for him to connect his individual past to our collective future that we're fighting for. And particularly in moments when folks are feeling like they need a little dose of hope, or they're not sure that the future that we are fighting for includes them or will be better for them, it's really important that we take the time to show what does the future look like that we're fighting for, and what will it look like when we've turned this page. And then the last piece of our framework is the you story. And this is where you get to bring your audience into the picture. And so this is when Chris is saying, be someone who shows up, be someone who's an advocate, be someone who says, I'm not going to let you go through this alone anymore. And this is your opportunity, again, to fully hand off the baton to your audience and bring them in. You've made them feel something. And so this is your opportunity to give them a place to put that energy and to direct it into ways that will help you in the work that you're trying to achieve in this advocacy that you're doing. I'm going to share a link in the chat now, which is a PDF of a handout that we've created where you can follow us along as we go through, and you can start to write in your own I, we, you story. It's a fillable PDF, so you should be able to either open it and click into it and write, or if that doesn't work, I suggest download it, open it, and then you should be able to click right into it and type along. When we're in person with people, we make you sit with a pen and do this, but hopefully this still gives you a good opportunity to follow along and start to fill in the details of your own advocacy story as we give you just a little bit more background about each of these pieces.
And one thing I'm going to say, and Lindsay knows that I say this in every single training, we are not looking for perfect. We want you to remember that this is about connection. We want you to make sure that you remember that this is about really being able to offer your own testament. So I say this again, I'm going to say this probably later today, but release yourself from the tedium of perfection. Even if you're just taking some notes down right now, that is fine. Okay? Back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share this again. I sent it to the hosts and panelists who, to be fair, would also benefit, but let's send it to everyone. Thank you, Cheyenne, for keeping us honest about who we're sharing information with. So when you get into the PDF, this is what it should look like. On the front, you've got the IWU framework with a little bit of information just to help you remember what you're shooting for with each piece. At the bottom, we have a short version of an IWU story that we scrolled out with some brackets to help you see each piece of the story. And then on page 2 is where you can go in and start to put in your own story, your own details. And as I said, we're going to walk you through each section of this one section at a time. So if you want to follow along with us in your own handout, you'll have the opportunity at the end to have a draft of an advocacy story that you can take out into the world and use. Right. So let's start with our I stories. So as I said before, your I story is the part that probably makes the most sense to you right off the bat. This is the part that you're used to thinking about when you think about storytelling. So this is you reaching into your personal past and sharing a specific moment in time that you feel is important to share. But I'll say for folks who are very new to storytelling, it's important to really have a beginning and middle and end in your story. So this is how things were, and then this thing happened, and then this is how things changed. That's the most basic outline of a personal story. And within that, there's lots of ways that you can maximize that story, that you can lean into certain details or lean into certain aspects to really give it more power. So there are 2 things that we want to share today, 2 tips that we learned on the road. One is that it's really important as you're telling these stories to maximize connection, the connection that you have with your audience, and to maintain that connection throughout your story sharing. And that looks like a couple of different things. One is you got to be telling stories that are genuine and authentic to you. So definitely don't pick up somebody else's hat and put it on your own head. Definitely don't embellish the size of the fish that you caught. I think it's most connecting, it's most resonant for folks when you are 100% authentic and genuine about your story. And that means it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can have some rough, raw edges, and that's okay. That actually helps it to feel authentic authentic and for folks to be able to connect to it. So if you're feeling like I'm not the best storyteller or the storyteller hasn't been perfectly polished, that means you're in the right place and you are sitting right on that edge of what will feel most connecting. The other thing that I would add is that in our story sharing, we encourage you right off the top as you're introducing yourself to add some identifiers for who you are to help flesh yourself out as a messenger and as a storyteller. Nia and
You
I
mean
both.
like a Black trans woman who is a lover of the Golden Girls?
Yes, exactly like that. Being able to share some details about who you are, how you're connected to your community, what kinds of things that you like, making yourself a fully rounded human as you're starting your story adds that level of connection and resonance before you really dive into the details. And you saw each of us do this when we introduced ourselves. You also saw Chris do it when he was introducing his story. The second tip that I'll give you about iStories, we call Goldilocks depth. And what this means is that, like with Goldilocks, there's such a thing as too hot and there's such a thing as too cold when it comes to your story. You really want to achieve the perfect depth between something that's a little too shallow and a little too deep. So a little too shallow might mean that this is a story that doesn't necessarily make you feel something. It's not, it's lost its ability to be evocative for you as a storyteller. Maybe it's something that you've told lots of times, or maybe it just is an experience that really wasn't that evocative for you to start. But digging a little bit deeper with your stories is important to be able to feel grounded and rooted and to sort of wake your audience up to the vulnerability of the share and the humanity that you're trying to connect across. That said, you can go too deep, and so we want to be wary of that too. What that looks like is maybe digging down so far that you're touching on things that haven't fully healed or that you're just not ready to share yet. Jennifer mentioned this at the top. Not every story is ready to share in every space right off the bat, and you get to decide. And so the good rule of thumb that we use is it's okay to share stories from scars, but maybe not wounds. If it feels like it's still actively healing, actively bleeding, hold on to that. And maybe don't share that publicly or just yet. Let yourself share from a place that's healed. And that also allows you to stay present as you're telling your story and to stay connected to your audience. If you dissociate or if you start to have a bad time or a hard time as you're sharing your stories, folks will feel that and they'll respond to it. Last couple of pieces that we say in the iStory section are once you've written out your story, once you've written out what it is that you want to share, we suggest adding sensory details where you can. Another good example in Chris's story, he's talking about mildewy mattresses. He's talking about cafeteria food. He's helping evoke those details of what it means to go on a camp field trip for you. Similarly, things you can see or touch or smell or taste or hear will add depth to your story and really help to bring your audience there. And then lastly, we use a technique called maple syrup editing, which means basically whatever you start with, you want to keep whittling it down and concentrating it until you have just the best, juicy, sugariest details left. I'm from Michigan and we have maple trees here that we make syrup with, and you need 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. You really have to boil off a lot of water to get that beautiful syrupy sweetness. And so similarly, as you're crafting your stories, I encourage you to tighten them as much as you can to leave just the juiciest, best details. Chris's story is 1.5 minutes, and he still got us all there. And so the faster you can get it, the more concentrated, the more punch you will pack. And these are our tips for our iStories. Nia, anything you want to add before we move to the mentee?
No, I think you really encapsulated it all. It's really about looking to, tell stories from your scars, not your wounds. Sometimes, especially for queer folks like Lindsay and I, and like many of you on this Zoom, they want us to describe the deepest, darkest that's ever happened to us. But there are revolutionary stories as well. Chris's story is one where the impact was really solid and positive. And so we can tell stories where advocacy and allyship actually works. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about your stories.
Love that. So now we're going to give you a chance to try it and to try it in a really bite-sized piece. And so what we're going to ask is in 1 or 2 sentences in the Mentimeter, can you outline a personal story that you want to share about your own LGBTQ plus advocacy? This could be anything. This could be a story that is of benefit. That's a story about a time when things went exactly right, like the first Pride that I ever went to, or the day that I got to marry my partner. This could be a story about a harm. This could be about this is what it was like when I couldn't access gender affirming care for myself or my child, or this is what it was like when I experienced public discrimination. This could be a journey story. It could be about a time when you changed how you were thinking about something, or when you change the level of advocacy that you were doing in your own life. Any 1 or 2 sentence story to tell us a little bit about your own background and where you're coming from as a storyteller and in your experience.
We are going to make sure that you all get access to the results from this Menti. And I also want to make space for folks who may be allies. So there is space for you too. You also have stories to tell on your allyship journey. One thing I say to everyone is, when did you become an ally to the trans community if you're not trans? Is there a defining moment, or was there something you saw? So this is just kind of workshopping. So type into the Menti and give us some examples of some stories that you want to tell. Okay. Okay, so we have someone starting off right away. I left my home state of Ohio to move to Michigan to escape anti-trans legislation. That's powerful. People need to hear that. I had an LGBTQ plus youth on my caseload who just wanted to be heard, supported, and I chose to listen to him open up my own understanding and how I can be a support. I'm saying myself as like a social worker, those stories are very important, especially in the field of child welfare, if you're working with or on behalf of young people. I see someone wrote a story about talking to legislators about my family. Yes. What was that experience? And like Lindsay said, what were those sensory details? How did your stomach feel? We were actually training some folks to speak to state legislators, and they talked about how it smelled to be in that old building and how that impacted them, right? I see my organization supports LGBTQ plus youth by visiting schools. We've had so many youth tell us they feel safer in their community because we exist. Can you pull out one of those stories where a young person said that directly? Help us to get a visual of what that young person said. What were they wearing? Were they wearing a rainbow shirt of some kind? What was the environment like? Were you seated? What room were you in the school? Those are some sensory details you can add. So if you have your one sheet, those are things that you can be filling out in the I section of your one sheet that Lindsay dropped for you. I see I became an ERG Pride lead at a company and then a North America Pride champion. My son inspired me to do this as he's gay, and I see the difference my allyship makes to so many colleagues and employees. People need to hear about that. Employee resource groups, they really, really need some more responses from folks. Really, really need those stories. And we've seen that as well. My little sister started the first Gender and Sexuality Alliance at my high school in allyship for me. That's an allyship story. How do you want others to show up for you? Just like Chris was explaining. When my son came out to me in our very conservative rural hometown, although I was not surprised by this announcement, I was saddened to hear he would not be moving back home due to homophobic views. So think about that personal story. What are some of the comments that, your son may have heard, and what was your response? How does it make you, show up in a different way, I attended my first Pride last year, and it was so exciting to feel celebrated for my identity. Love that. I finally came out again at 35. Nobody talks about that, as often in the queer community or LGBTQ plus community, that coming out is not just a one-time deal, that many of us have to come out multiple times in our lifetime. And it's not just necessarily coming out, it's inviting people in so that they know who we are. It's also for trans folks disclosure. Okay, so we're heading in the right direction. I want people to continue, making notes and writing into their one sheets. What are some personal stories that you have to tell? I see this, a parent of 3 queer kids, 2 of whom are trans. I've learned to bravely advocate for them in all areas of life, including school, church, and family. Do you have an example of one time at church, something that you said or something you did at church? And how would you be able to maple syrup that a little bit, right? Okay, so let's keep going. I love where we're at. You all are doing such a great job, and keep typing, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the next part of storytelling. So when we talked about I stories, it's really good to get clarity on the stories that you have to tell. But here's where it makes a difference also, is in our future. This is where the we part of the I, we, you model comes in. So if I stories are about your past, you have to really connect it to what you believe our future is going to hold. This is really how we, as LGBTQ plus and LGBTQ adjacent folks, allies, are creating a narrative. We already know some of the narratives that are out there about us. Type into the chat on Menti or into Zoom. What are some of the narratives that currently exist about LGBTQ plus folks that we don't have control over? Type into the chat. And as you're typing into the chat, let's also think about narratives that also exist. So unrelated to LGBTQ plus folks, think about the Me Too movement, right? We knew that those were individual stories about people who were experiencing various forms of assault, but it also uplifted power dynamics. It uplifted gender-based violence, all of those things. I see Christopher trying to indoctrinate. Yes, that LGBT adults were trying to indoctrinate our youth. That's one narrative that currently exists. And so imagine this opportunity for us to share stories in a similar way. So think also about the power of the Me Too movement, that those individual stories created a narrative, not only to speak to the harm, but to speak to the power that we have by speaking up, right? And so think about your we story in the same way. If your individual story is a star, then our narrative is the constellation that we build. Okay, so the question that I want you all to start really thinking about is, what is the future going to look like when we achieve our goals? So the next conversation I want to have with you about that is, what is our future going to hold? And I don't mean what's happening in the status quo. I don't mean the fight that we have to face in order to get to the other side. I want you to do some imagining right now. I want you to do some manifestation right now. I want you to do some planning right now. What is the future going to hold for us as LGBTQ plus folks and allies? Okay, so keep all of that in mind and remember, okay, what's our future going to hold? So my next question for you into the Mentimeter, and you can join the Mentimeter if you haven't done so already. I want you to type out in concrete examples, give me full sentences. What will our future look like when we achieve LGBTQ plus equality for all? Okay? What will the future look like? And take a look at some of the sub-questions as well on the left. What about our community members? How would LGBTQ plus children be treated in this future? What family systems or rituals would emerge? How are LGBTQ plus elders treated? Okay? So what is that aspirational future that we should be fighting toward, right? I already see powerful. Schools will become a place to grow and thrive where every kid can lean into their joy, family, and history. Oh my gosh. I'm getting like goosebumps. That is powerful. We will not have to come out. We will just be. I love it. Family would mean unconditional love and support. That our future would look like being loved, accepted, safe, vulnerable. That LGBTQ plus healthcare won't be controversial. So that's what it is right now. So if that's what it is right now, what will it be in the future? So describe from a place of abundance. That's how we build on the future, is we think of what will be as opposed to what will no longer exist. So not what we won't have anymore, but what we will have. Okay? All right, I see 6 responses. Let's get some folks in here. I would love to see you. Keep going. This might be the first time for you, whether you all have actually sat in unison and typed out what this vision for a future actually looks like. Well, I was just talking to Jennifer at Equality Florida, and we always talk about the fight, right? We always talk about what has to happen in order to get to the other side. But what is on the other side, right? I see more comments. Okay, people are starting to fill it up. LGBTQ, okay, our futures will invite curiosity and honor for everyone's spiritual and human journey. I love that. Everyone is truly treated as members of one human family. Yes, including LGBTQ plus folks. We could approach the loves in our life with excitement, curiosity, and joy. Wow, that almost sounds like loving and healthy relationships. Yes, all of those things. What else do you all have? I'll be as proud of an American flag as I am of a pride flag. Wow. That needs to go on some sort of sticker. That needs to go on something. I can see a t-shirt with that. I even see in the chat, Constantina, everyone will be treated with respect and differences won't matter. I love that. What else do we have here? Our rights to exist as we are not up for debate. Love it. In government, LGBTQ plus people will always be at the table and never on the menu. I give snaps for that. Look at that. Another really amazing comment. You all are really just tapping into this. I love this collective future that we're building. Okay, power and preferred pronouns. I would just say power of pronouns, right? Yes. Our future will look like equitability, where everyone is loved for being their authentic self and able to be safe and healthy. Yes, that is power. Yes, so keep on building on this. We also are going to make sure whatever you all type is also the data that you're going to be receiving. So if there are really powerful quotes that are inspirational, we're going to make sure that at the end that you will, we're going to be actually making sure you receive these quotes from the qualitative data that you're collecting on yourselves. Amazing. Gender markers on passports, IDs, and all identification reflects all gender identities. Yes, that sounds like a plan. Schools will be able to accommodate trans youth with name changes and respect from all staff and teachers. Passing won't be expected or seen as better. Actually, passing doesn't exist in this future. People don't have to pass at all. That's a future. So a decrease in forced sex work. Okay, that's something that's aspirational. No more suicide due to bullying discrimination, right? When I don't have to come out to every new person in my life. This is where we want you all to get. Imagine now, so I want you to take a look if you're already working on your story sheet. There's a we section and there's a blank space for that. Think about a one clarifying sentence. My future of advocacy looks like, I want a future where my child can. I deserve. The world deserves, my child deserves, my sister deserves a world where she doesn't have to come out to every person in her life, right? Imagine you tethering it to this vision for a future. I want a future where I am as proud to be an American as I am of being queer, right? I deserve, or we deserve as a community, a future where we can approach the loves in our life with excitement, curiosity, and joy. You hear how powerful that sounds? Okay. All right, so let's keep on that momentum. This is how we get into a we story. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay to round us out with the you story. Thank you, everyone. Love the building we're doing together.
Thank you so much, Nia. Okay, so we told a story about our past. Now we've given a future for the future that we're fighting for based on what we've experienced in our past. The last step is to bring our audience into the now and invite them to take action. And so for our purposes today, we're talking to you about how you should talk to someone if you're encouraging them to join you in this fight. And so there are two specific things that you need to do if you are trying to bring someone into this fight with you and get them activated. The first is you want to tell them why this moment is urgent. Why do they need to take action right now? What is it about this moment that we're living in that requires that they step up and do something right this minute? And the second thing is to make a really specific, strong ask of them for how to take action. As I said before, this whole story has been building their emotional investment. It's been building their understanding. Now they have all this energy, and you need to tell them, you got to put it somewhere. You got to put it right now, right here. And again, this is the very last step in handing off that baton to your audience and giving them some place to go with these emotions, this connection, this authenticity that we've built together. And so this could look like a lot of different things. But again, ideally, by the end of your writing of your I, we, you story, your three pieces connect. And so if the story that you told of your past was about your experience of being bullied in school, then you might say, that's why I'm fighting for a future where every school is a place for students to grow and thrive and never have to shrink to survive. This moment is so important to take action because legislators in 20 different states have put up bills trying to make queer and trans kids be smaller at school. And we could see a bill like this pass in this next legislative session. You can take action today. You can join us by showing up at this lobby day, by calling your legislators, by telling your own story. And all three pieces of your story will line up and link together in a way that carries your audience from understanding to a vision for this future and now an action in the present. And that is an I, we, you story. So again, in that handout that we gave you, there's a place at the bottom for your you story. This is where you get to write in why this moment is so important for someone to take action, and then one action step that they can take to make change with you today. And that completes your I, we, you advocacy story.
Okay, so our last conversation, the last activity for you is we got 5 months until the election, right? So let's start thinking about places where we need to actually share our stories. So I want you to type into the Mentimeter or type into the Zoom chat, what is one upcoming event? Is it a PFLAG meeting? Is it another Equality Florida training? Is it a lobby, some sort of lobby event? Is it going to be another protest for No King's Day? What's one upcoming event or meeting or group that you're going to commit to sharing your LGBTQ plus advocacy story with? So you can type it into the chat or you can type it into the Menti. But we want to actually get people to commit to, now that you're thinking about different stories that you have to tell, where do you think that you can tell them between now and Election Day? I see from Kathy, No King's Rally. Imagine you circling up with a group of folks and saying, I have a story to tell. This is something that happened to me. That's why, based on this thing that happened to me or someone I love, I want this kind of future. And in order to achieve that future, we got to face reality and what's going on now. And that's why I'm asking you to do this thing. So it's taking that story, tying it to a vision for the future, and then really asking people to take action. Okay, so look at this. My dad's birthday is on Saturday. I can definitely tell my story there. That's the spirit. Okay, so think about those three pieces. A story you want to tell, right? A vision for the future you want, and then what's the action you want people to take? How do you want them to, what do you want them to do with your story? If your story is a testament, if your story is an offering, what do you want them to do with it, right? I see from Ez, speaking with people this Sunday at the Tampa Jewish Community Center Pride Bunch. Okay, I definitely hope that goes well. Think about getting that story out. I love it. Down East Pride at the end of this month. It's Pride Month. What better way to get your story out and to build that connection, right? I go to a support group weekly and would love to try this framework at our next event. Yes. We'll be doing a Pride panel discussions at my company live and in person and streaming it out across the country to our other employees. This can be done virtually or in person. Yeah, sharing a brunch through your New York Running Through the Rainbow. Okay, love it. At my future foster care training. Yes, as someone who's trained thousands of social workers and foster parents, this is a great space for storytelling, especially through the training process, is to share those stories because so many come up with, different visuals of why it won't work to be inclusive to LGBTQ plus youth. We know looking at the data that roughly 1 in 3 that are in the system right now are LGBTQ plus, and there's an overrepresentation of LGBT youth of color in that mix. We also see 15% of all incarcerated youth are LGBTQ plus. So we're seeing this overrepresentation in the child welfare system. We need those stories to be told in that space. As many as 40%, almost half of all youth experiencing homelessness are LGBTQ plus. So we need these stories out. Type some more. We got 6 or 7 responses. I see at a Pride event this Saturday. Where else? I see my husband and I are in the process of changing our trans daughter's gender marker. And we have to go now through the courts. I plan on telling her and our story in front of the judge. I have to give snaps for that. Yes. Tell that story. And that's why, Judge, I want a future where my child deserves a future where she can be her true and authentic self, right? This is exactly why, right? You live in Arizona, so you're really nervous. I understand. And you do it anyway, right? Right? It's getting that story out. One of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou is, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you." And so let it out. All right? All right, so we have you all typing in some ideas. Continue to brainstorm. Continue to think of places where your story needs to show up. You have 5 months between now and the election and midterms. Let's get these stories out. It's Pride Month and people need to hear. People need to break up that isolation, okay? So what can you do next? All right, we're inviting you. If you're ready to share your story, we want to hear it. We're offering an opportunity for you to share your stories, whether that is through the one sheet that that Lindsay gave to you earlier today. You can fill that out and scan it to us. We'll also make sure that this QR code and link is available in our post-training email. Okay, but if you want to share your story, you can find a myriad of ways. If it is, sharing your story on your socials. If you want to make a video, we can uplift your video as well. If you want to just record your voice, some folks are wanting more anonymity. So if you just want to just use your voice and record an MP4, send us a voice note. We accept that as well. Okay. So, but the point is, get your story out. That narrative that many of you talked about, it really does exist. And we have the opportunity. Whoopi Goldberg says this every day on The View. It's on us. All of this is on us right now. So we have an opportunity to turn the tide and build connection. And that's through our stories. Okay, Lindsay?
I'm also going to share in the chat. We put together a recording guide for folks who are interested in putting together video content. So I'll share that with you all so you have that as well. It also goes through the framework in some detail. So if that's a resource that you want to share with others who weren't able to join us today, that also is a possibility, a way for them to engage. We're in the process of putting this curriculum in its longer form online. And so we're going through the process of creating e-learning right now, and we need more example stories, more voices, more experiences to be able to share there. And so please, if it's a good opportunity for you or something that you're willing to do, we would love to hear your story and get you included in the work that we are doing. And I think we also will be sharing after this webinar, you'll get a resource sheet from the organizers that has the top lines from this training. It has the link to Chris's story, and it has some additional resources for you as well if you need them. But hopefully we were able to give you some things to think about today, some tools to use. And as you go out in the world and start sharing your stories, we hope you remember to tag your we and your you onto your I stories. And we're just so very grateful for the time with you all and this opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all as we round out the conversation, type one word into the chat to describe how you're feeling after this training. Type one word into the chat. Grateful, proud, prideful, feliz, happy, excited, hopeful, motivated, great, real, proud, ready, united. I love it. Inspired, hopeful, informed. That's exactly where we want you all. What a great conversation today. I just see it so ready. Yes, we'll accept two words, Anna. Hopeful, informed. Okay, we are ready. We're ready for you. So get your stories out. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand it back to Jennifer.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you, Lindsay. This was incredible. And if folks have any additional questions, you can put it in the chat. And also you can reach out to us and we'll make sure that you are put in touch. Here's some takeaways that really spoke to me. You know, our stories have the power to create connection, inspire understanding, and really remind others they're not alone. I mean, I think that the fact that so many different stories were put out in these questions really got me thinking, what is the story that I want to share? And so I think it's important that we share when we're ready in a way that feels right. I love the scars, not wounds. That's such a powerful message. And also just remembering not to look for perfection. I'm a perfectionist, so sometimes if I don't think I could do it perfectly, I don't want to do it. And I love the way, Nia, you gave us permission to not have to do it perfect. And so to remember all of these points, I want to thank not only Nia and Lindsay, but I want to thank our audience for your participation. This was amazing. I want to remind you also that you will receive an email later this week or early next week with the links to a recording of today's conversation if you want to share with someone who wasn't able to join. You will also get those resource handouts, the information that was put in the Mentimeter, and a link to a feedback survey. We would appreciate if you complete this survey so we can learn how to improve our programming. We also hope you can join us in 3 weeks for our next and final conversation in this series. I think it is going to, I know it is going to be an incredible finale. Actually, Nia and Lindsay know the folks that are going to be on. Our conversation is going to be about pride in action. We have built, now we know how to tell our stories. What are we doing with those stories? So we are going to have some very powerful parents from our HRC Parents for Transgender Equality Council talking about how to change the world. And so we're going to hear these advocates are from across the country, and they're turning their connection and pride into real world impact. And so I really hope that you will leave that one with some ideas, inspiration, and a clear pathway into how you can take action. So we hope that you will join us. And we want to thank you again and hope to see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Thank you all.